This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Everyone, welcome to this week's Pod, the show for the week of October 23rd, 2023, and it is October 24th we're recording this, and you're going to be listening to this on October 25th. Sorry for the delay, everybody, but Phil, I know on the top of your mind, as I'm doing trip planning for my trip, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but what seems to be on everybody's mind this week, and I don't know why, is food. You've been thinking about food. I've been thinking about food, and then I spent way too much time arguing about food on the WDW Magic forums this week, incessantly, and I don't know what's going on. So you had we're going to talk about a top 5 food section a little bit later. That's our game we're going to play today. I always like a good top 25. But on my side, we've got people were complaining about the high cost at Disney restaurants. Right, we're going to tie this in a little bit later. And no one's going to say that Disney prices for food are cheap, but they're not as expensive as people think. And I think you were chiming into this conversation as well on the message boards. I had my blind rage going on about these people that couldn't, I can go out to eat for $23 for my family of 5 at my local restaurant. I'm like, okay, I don't know where you live, but nowhere near a center of population. Anyway, so I was comparing a lot of things on Disney World's stuff, and tell me out there if you don't see this. When I go to like Panera, when I go to Burger King, like a single meal is like $16. What is, a bowl at Satu'li's Canteen? It's like $17, $18. Yeah. So with inflation and everything else like that, I don't think Walt Disney World food is really that bad at this point with cost wise. Are you getting that vibe? What's going on?
Yeah. So that's definitely the vibe I've been getting. When we go out, it's getting more and more expensive. Just normal casual places, or it's over $100 to feed my family. And at Disney, there are some things that I think are very overpriced and everything food related at Disney. But I think there's also, if you're careful, you can find some reasonably priced things that aren't that much more than going out to a lot of other places, especially when you compare it to sporting events or anything like that, where you're kind of a semi-captive audience. I think Disney's food is kind of reasonable. And the main point I was trying to make was, I don't think the cost of food, yes, the cost of food is a factor, but it's not really the killer compared to the resorts or the tickets or something like that, which is the bulk of kind of what makes a Disney trip expensive. The food at Disney is kind of expensive, but the food anywhere you vacation is going to be kind of expensive. I don't think that's something that would deter people from doing a Disney trip or not, was kind of the point I was trying to make. But then, totally went off the rails, and people are saying, but at Red Robin, I can get a burger for this with unlimited fries. It's like, well, that's great, but
you're not at Disney World.
You're not at Disney or at, Six Flags or at a Mets game or whatever. So
without going nuts, it's basically I posted on there. It's like, okay, well, you're still at a lot of sit down restaurants that don't have a prefix menu. And we're just going to go into this. We're going to talk about the top 5 table service values that we have on our list.
And just to add, I think the majority of people in the conversation that weren't trying to derail it kind of agreed that the quick service or the walk up snack type food was fairly reasonable, but that the table service, the quality wasn't there for what you're paying for. And obviously there's a lot of other factors that go into a table service meal at Walt Disney World, whether it's a character meal or not. And so it kind of got me thinking, from a value standpoint, which of the table service restaurants do you think provide the most value? And that's kind of what we're going to get into our game session.
Yeah, and I just want to point one thing that really irritated me because somebody was wrong on the internet, and I got really bothered by it. Was they were taking a hamburger at the Sci-Fi drive-in, which is I think it's like $23 for like a barbecue burger or something, whatever. Yeah. And they were comparing it to the 3-in-1 value meal you can get at Chili's. And I'm like, you can't compare a value meal. Compare the Chili's hamburger that's like $15 to the Sci-Fi burger, but don't compare the one that's like a eighth ounce patty versus whatever you have to stuff. Anyway, you got to pair like to like. But value at table service. So to me, table service, there's 3 categories of table service meals, not counting the signature sit down. I don't think we're going to talk about any of the signature restaurants. I don't think.
I mean, unless one of those you think provides the value, but yeah, I mean, I think
not me personally.
Yeah, I think there's.
So, I'm sorry. No, so I think there's 3 categories, right? So you have the normal sit down restaurant where you can order off a menu. Everything has randomly priced. You have a character meal that has an entertainment kind of value tossed into that price that you're paying for. And then you have all the restaurants that have a prefix menu. You select an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert, or it's like a family style and just like Akershus and brings everything to you type of thing. So one with lots of choice, one with you just pay one price, and then another one where you get a whole bunch of other stuff. So where does that value come in? And I think let's go back and forth with some of. Actually, do you want to do my whole list or your whole list, comment on it, and then go to the others, or do you want to go back and forth?
Yeah, why don't you? It was my idea, so I'll give you first crack at it if you want to go through your whole list.
Because I think I just copied all of yours. Like your list was on the second page of the document, and I was writing on the first page, and then I finished writing. I scrolled down. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a boring conversation. I'll rattle off mine real quick because if you've been listening to this show for any amount of time, you probably can predict my top 5. And I don't really have a 5th because I'm weaning myself off character meals. So the first one on the list is Skipper's Canteen. I think you get tremendous value at the Magic Kingdom because the food selection of the Magic Kingdom is not the best out of all the parks. The average plate could range from anywhere between $25 to $38, depending on seafood versus steak or anything else like that. And it's a sit-down meal. It's easy to get ADR. It's a really well themed. If you're lucky, you get a waiter or waitress or server to kind of play some Jungle Cruise type games with you, which is sometimes entertaining and sometimes irritating if they try too hard. And then I think it's a wonderful place to go. My second one is Steakhouse 71. Been there once for lunch, and that hamburger is absolutely phenomenal, and it's under $20 if I remember correctly. They have options for vegetarians. When I went there, and we talked about this last summer of 22, where you recommended the the Portobello? What was the thing?
It's the vegetarian Wellington or whatever.
Wellington, that's the word I'm thinking of. Yeah. So my wife and I sat there in silence as we just ate this food because we were so enamored by the taste. It was absolutely phenomenal. Couldn't recommend that restaurant more. And for lunch, dinner gets a little bit pricey, but for lunch, the pricing is pretty reasonable and the same quality of food. The other one was the Tusker House. It's the only character meal I think I would actually recommend anywhere else. The food is very interesting, as in it's different from your average fare from like Hollywood and Vine or Crystal Palace or Chef Mickey's. Character interactions are pretty good. So as you're trying some new things, new flavors, new spices, all those type of things, you're also getting a character meal. So I think it's different enough where it kind of elevates it above everything else. My fourth one is Sanaa because it's an absolutely phenomenal restaurant. I do not have a 5th restaurant because any other restaurant that I've eaten at is something that I would either not go back to or, I mean, nothing's drawing me back. It wasn't say it was a bad experience, but I wouldn't purposely go back to doing that. And without exploring any other restaurants, because my kids are still young, I still don't go to many more of the expensive ones. I know the first one on your list is something I desperately wanted to try. That's been on my last couple trips. That's been axed a couple times. So anything you want to comment on my list before we go into yours? Because they're somewhat the same. So I don't know if you want to save.
Yeah, not too much. I mean, I would just add that I pulled up the menu from Steakhouse 71. So it might have been a little cheaper when it started. Now the burger's $23, but still it's a phenomenal burger.
It could have been like $19 or $20.
Yeah. So I think it might have gone up a few dollars, but still, I think that's a great option. So I'll go to my list. I had Steakhouse 71 on there as well. Even looking at like dinner, like their steaks are like $30, $36. And then you can get like a flight of all the sauces for $6. Like for a steakhouse, that's like very reasonable, even outside of like, not usually Disney or something.
Usually when you go to a nice steakhouse, and this is trying to be a decent, not like a coat and tie steakhouse, but like an upscale steakhouse, sauces usually run you $3 to $6 depending on what it is. So it's good value.
Yeah, so I think Steakhouse 71 is definitely on my list. The one you were referring to is a character meal. I put Storybook Dining. Obviously, we only did it once, and it might be a little recency bias, but like I mentioned during my review, I think it has everything you want in a Disney meal. Right? It had really good food, pretty good variety, fun drinks, great character interactions. The characters are not the characters you could just meet in the park, other than Snow White.
Mhm.
You get some rare characters, some unique interactions. The setting is nice, that sort of thing. And just to kind of compare it, an adult price there is 65. An adult to eat at Chef Mickey's is 66. So it's just like the value. I mean, obviously one's a little harder to get to, but like the value for the quality you're getting of that experience, I think is so much higher that I would call that a good value for that dining experience.
I mean, once we're all done, I want to talk about those three categories we're talking about. But like when you compare Storybook, from what I've heard from whether it's yourself, other people, Matt recently was kind of, I think he went back for a second time, or he's planning to go back for a second time because he loves it so much. There's no comparison unless you desperately need to meet the Fab Five. Like to me, I don't know how you can choose between the two unless you just can't get the ADR for it.
Yeah. And then I put Sebastian's Bistro, which I know is a little beaten off the path, but the food there is really good. Again, lots of variety. We got some of the plant-based options as well. We're really good. Mm-hmm. And pricing wise, for all you can eat, again, was $38 for adults. Compare that, no characters, but it's kind of themed and that sort of thing. Compared to Rodeo Roundup is $45. So just, another price comparison where I think you can get really good value for a nice meal, all you can eat at Sebastian's. Another one I put there is Spice Road Table. That's another one where whether you're doing the prefix for one of the party, like the dining packages, or just going there to try different things. Again, it's one where you can get a decent amount of food, try different things, unique options. That's one thing I value at Disney is give me an experience I can't necessarily have at home easily. Yeah. And this is a unique experience at reasonable prices. The kids' meals are good and that sort of thing. I put sorry. What were you going to say? Something?
Last year, when we did our Candlelight Processional dining package, we chose the Rose and Crown. Mm-hmm. I loved sitting in the Rose and Crown. The food was, I got fish and chips. It was good, but it wasn't like blow me away, amazing food. The kid options were kind of poor, I thought. But I really wanted to do Spice Road Table for this. I've been meaning to go there. And what saddens me is that we had to cancel Marrakesh in our 2019 trip for various reasons. We just wanted to take an early night, and that closed down. And I really wanted to give that restaurant a try, and unfortunately, won't be able to. But yes, Spice Road Table's on my list for sure.
Yep. I also put Sanaa. I think that is one place where it's easy to kind of over order a little bit, and that can bring the price up a little bit. But if you order well, kind of get the bread sampler for people to try, and a couple other things, you can do a really good meal there for a reasonable price. Again, a unique setting, animals outside the window and stuff like that. An experience
it's
awesome. I can't get at home. And then my last one that we've already talked about was Steakhouse 71. So those were my 5. I don't know if it's just coincidence that they all start with the letter S, but those are the 5. So I guess if you're looking for a value in a restaurant, see if it starts with the S.
Yeah, I mean, like going back to my categories, a couple things that stand out is just for like general value, right? So a lot of the prefix menus, I don't like that because, again, I have to consider myself for a party of 5 if I'm going, right? So I don't think I'm getting value at any of the prefix restaurants for children because, A, it's either overpriced or they're getting food that's lower portions. Like my daughter last year at 9 got the kids' meal at Candlelight Processional because she was 9, or at Rose and Crown, and it was not enough food for her. Meanwhile, for my son, it was just like bland chicken or something else, and we didn't want to give him mac and cheese for like the 6th day in a row type of thing. So I'm not a big fan of that. I like the ability for them to kind of pick and choose. So prefix menus has been getting, I guess, more and more popular with some of the restaurants, either for like cost control, that type of thing. It's like a limited menu. They don't have to have as many ingredients. It's faster, food prep, everything else like that. So I get it from a business point of view. But things like, the Be Our Guest restaurant, I don't think I'll ever be in that restaurant because it's $60-something for adults and slightly less for children. And I don't think we're getting the value out of that meal unless you really want to be in there. And while it is beautiful, I don't think I can recommend it for those prices. So prefix menus, I do not think, when we're strictly talking about value, because we've been talking about dollars this whole time, I think you get value at Skipper's because you can choose a salad that's in the teens. You can in the lower end entrees that are in their 20s, and the higher end entrees in the 30s. And if you just get like a water or a soda to go with it, well, all of a sudden your meal's like $35, which is pretty good for a sit down meal, no matter where you live. Anywhere that's kind of like a sit down restaurant, unless you're going to Applebee's, is going to be in the $20 or $30 range. And I think you can achieve that easily. Same thing for lunches everywhere. But then you add like the character meals. So to me, like everybody thinks it's overpriced. It's $60 something a head for adults. You really got to think that, when you go, the buffet costs somewhere between $20 and $30, and the other $30 you're spending for 5 character meet and greets. That's basically what it comes down to, I think. So The way I think about it is, for each kid in my party, I'm paying for a lightning lane for each of them, basically, to meet some characters. And that's kind of how I kind of put things together. And lastly, it's the I did all 3. It's the character meals, prefix, and then the pick. So I think if you're looking for value, find the menus that are not prefix or not character meals, especially if you're going with just maybe one kiddo and whatever. I think that's the best way to kind of have good food, sit down, but don't come out with like a $200 bill.
Yep. Yeah. The only thing else I was going to add is, in that thread, I probably sounded like I was defending Disney some, and they definitely do things food wise that annoy me. The prefix thing in general, but especially, looking at some of like the party things or like the dining packages, like for the fireworks at Epcot. My wife and I got great value out of the when we did it for Illuminations at Rose and Crown, because it included alcoholic beverages, and we each had like 3 or 4 during the whole time. My 14-year-old and my 11-year-old would still have to pay the same price, and they can't drink the alcoholic beverage, And
you're not guaranteed a cast member is going to say, "Oh, well, I'll give Dad the beer," because they can't technically buy the beer. Like,
right.
If I wasn't drinking that night, if I was on one trip, we had a dining plan, I was on antibiotics, and I couldn't have a glass of wine, but I ordered a glass of wine. If part that came included with everything, and I passed it over to my wife to have a second glass, but a server can't take a beer and put it in front of your
kid, right?
Year-old, and then have her. She can't. That's illegal. You can't do that. So that's why I think that value is absolutely horrific at that.
Yeah, and then even just the prefix, it's annoying that I get why places went to it, because it guarantees more money from people. The one I think is most guilty is or impacted us the most is California Grill. We used to go there a lot. Obviously, the view is great for watching the fireworks and stuff. But they had a lot of, my kids like sushi. They had flatbreads. You could kind of get a whole bunch of stuff. Our bill was not inexpensive by the end of the night, but it was kind of stuff we would share. And, we kind of felt like we got a good value for it. I think too many people were going there and not ordering very much, kind of the be our guest problem. So now they've switched it over to that prefix meal. And again, if you're 10 and up, which 2 of my kids are, it's $89. And that's a lot of money to pay for like an 11-year-old, So even for my wife and I, that's not inexpensive. So I think those things there's plenty of things at Disney food wise that annoy me, but there are things, there's plenty of other options that you can figure out food at Disney on whatever budget you have.
No, 100%. There are different levels for everybody depending on how much you want to spend. Now, talking about kids and leaving them home, you've been bragging about a potential vacation for the next summer that you're planning. And this subject was something I was kind of bringing up that didn't make it on the show, but you're kind of now, it's personal to you now because there's decisions you have to make. So what were you?
Yeah, so I think we did cover it briefly on one topic where you were, at like dinner or something at a friend's house, and you were talking about how another couple, like the wife really likes Disney, but the husband doesn't really like to travel with them and stuff like that. So she just, well, you just take the kids, I'll stay home. And we kind of were like talking about that. And
well, the husband doesn't mind traveling with the wife. The husband absolutely dislikes Disney completely. He's one of these like, oh, I'm not a Disney adult already. Kind of feels whatever. But anyway, sorry.
So it kind of related to what's coming up for us now is we've been talking about what are we going to do for summer vacation next year in general. Fortunately, through work, I have some extra time off I can take. So we're trying to plan like kind of a bigger thing. So we've been talking about, maybe going over to Europe and things like that. But my oldest daughter really liked the camp she went to last year. It's a day camp. And she's getting to the age now where she can take like counselor and training sessions there. And she really likes the camp. She really wants to do this. She had to fill out like applications and stuff like that to like get into the program. Like she's committed to it. I think it's a good thing. You know, obviously it's good for resumes and college applications that you're doing this and counseling training stuff. The problem is our summer break next year is like 9 weeks. This program is 9 weeks. So it's the entire summer, and it's day camp. So she needs driven there and then driven back. So basically it would mean we would have no summer vacation we could go on. And so we're kind of like, well, do we let her do this? That sort of thing. So what we came up with, because part of it was like, well, it's not really fair to the rest of the family, especially her younger siblings, to say, well, you can't go on summer vacation either because I'm doing this program. So I threw the idea out to my wife, and she was okay with it. And we asked my daughter if she would be okay if we do this too, that each of us, my wife and I, would take the other two for like a week each and do a vacation. So like just me and 2 kids, and then her and 2 kids. And so we talked to my oldest daughter and said, are you okay if the other 2 kind of get 2 mini vacations or whatever? And you get no vacation because you're committing to this camp program. And she said she was fine with that. She's that like kind of into this camp thing. Okay. So it kind of made me think, like, would you ever go on vacation like with just a couple of your kids and not with your spouse? And then also, yes. And then the other thing came up was obviously now we're competing against each other to try to see who can come up with the better vacation and get the kids all excited. Kids are kind of like, you know, I don't know, maybe the positive side if you ever have like divorced parents and each one's trying to outdo the other one. And, but of course I'm trying to fit Disney into it. So my thought was, because it's in the summer next year, is to go over to California for the D23 event. Probably wouldn't do the whole thing because I think that'd be too much for the kids, but do like one day at the actual event, you know, a couple days at Disneyland, a couple days just in the area, that sort of thing. But it also, when I'm looking at pricing, when I'm used to looking at a Disney trip for 5 and now I'm only looking at it for 3, it's like, oh, that's not so bad. Like maybe, oh, well, let's upgrade here and let's do. So it's kind of funny with, I guess it's like Disney math a little bit, that when you're doing a trip for fewer people than you're used to, it feels a lot easier to spend on the extras. Like, yeah, let's do park hopping. Let's add Genie Plus. Like, you know, it's a lot easier when it's only 3 like instead 3. Of exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on any of all this.
No, I do, because it's funny. Like when my mom spends the summer down at our house, she helps take care of the kids. She, you know, kind of goes to the pool every day. She has a good time. Right. And, when we're sitting up late at night, my wife is in bed or sleeping, and we're just kind of talking, you know, Disney memories or whatever. We always talk about like, well, why don't we one year just go drive down or fly down to Disney and have my mom and I go to the tequila bar in Epcot, run around for like, you know, we leave on a Thursday, go Friday, Saturday, come back Sunday, that type of like little quick weekend type of thing. And I'm like, oh man, how much would that cost? And I start putting in the room cost, the ticket cost, and the number doesn't go up like this. And I'm like, oh, that is cheap. That's a cheap Disney trip. And I'm like, but I'm also spending $1,000 just for myself to go down for like 4 days or whatever it is. But yeah, like the math is like crazy. Like, yeah, I'm like, wow, we could get hoppers. We could start doing this. We can start doing this. We can go do this. And I'm like, why am I spending this much money? I think it's great. First of all, just for parenting, it's always nice to have some quote unquote alone time with your kids, right? So like your oldest is not going, unfortunate for her, but she's got other bigger things that she's kind of playing around with. But the other kids will appreciate the extra time that they get, not having the old one kind of taking up all the time and attention, right? I mean, there's a younger sibling type of thing. So I think it's absolutely wonderful. And you would probably have a good time. The only thing that I would think of that I would worry about, and your kids are older than mine. My youngest is about to turn 6. I don't know if they'd be able to keep up with like a trade show type of atmosphere for an extended period of time where like you're going to want to be there like for the whole thing, and you're not going to want to leave. And your kids are like, oh, I have to use the bathroom. Oh, I'm hungry. I want to go back to the hotel. Why are we still here? This is boring. And meanwhile, you're like totally engrossed in everything and you don't want to move. So I think that's the only thing you kind of have to, I don't say worry about, but like build. Yeah, no,
it's definitely something I'm weighing in on it, and why we definitely would do one. And we have to see how the tickets are going to be sold, because it's like a different structure next year where they're having like the daytime in one place and the nighttime in another. Yeah. So is that like going to be 2 tickets or 1 ticket? So we're definitely not going to overdo it, but we thought it would be fun to like let them experience it for a little bit And even if we only do like one big panel and walk around and see the trade shows and stuff. And I don't know, it's funny. I was talking about like, well, they're like, well, what actually happens at it? And what are and I'm kind of like explaining it to them. And I'm like, and this is the big one. And when they have the movie theater, you know, the about Marvel and stuff like that, they'll have all the actors in there. Of course, my youngest is like celebrities. Like,
yes. Okay,
so like,
that's good hook.
Yeah. So we'll see what works out. You know, obviously I haven't booked any tickets or anything like that. I did book a fully refundable hotel room just to have something for that like kind of weekend, because I don't want everything to run out, and found a nice location that's kind of in between the parks and the convention center and stuff like that. So at least we have that if we're going to do this. But they're not, I don't think they're going to have the details out until springtime sometime. So we'll kind of wait a little bit to get the details to see if this is what we actually do. But
I'm definitely not jealous for that. I mean, it's in, what are the dates for that? It's like August something, right?
Yeah, so it's like the 9th, 10th, and 11th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are like the weekend of the core events, but they're supposed to be doing something like at the actual Disneyland park Thursday evening, which I think could be fun, but we'll have to wait and see on the details and stuff like that.
My son's football starts up there right around that time, so like we can't take any family vacations in August.
Yeah, it's funny because in the past this event's usually been early September, which is right when my kids start school. So even if I was going to do it like solo, I'm like, I can't like leave like for their first days of school. So the fact that it's earlier this year, we can actually kind of, it makes more timing wise, it works better for us. So we'll see.
Totally not jealous of your attempt to go to D23. I don't know how to sneak out there, because that's a pricey ticket.
Yeah, so we'll see. And the one, and one day's not too bad. So I think that's another reason why we'll probably just do that. And then I don't know, my son seems real excited just for Disneyland. He's talking, he's like, I really want to ride Matterhorn again and stuff like that. So we'll see.
One of these days, depending on which one of my kids is Disney-fied, and I think it's my oldest at this point. Mm-hmm. There might be like a father-daughter like trip to Disneyland, unless my wife Tony's like, no, I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, well then now there's an adult trip to California. As long as I'm going, it's fine. But talking about planning, so I'm going to take my turn about my trip planning. I don't know if this is totally boring to people that are listening to this podcast, but this did start off as a trip planning podcast, and I kind of want to bring people along my process. So I purchased my tickets this week, so we're all in. Like, those are not refundable now. We're dug in, we're going, and that type of thing. And so one of the things that we started doing, I mentioned this last week, is we're now having weekly meetings as a family to kind of talk about Disney planning. And I got my whiteboard out. We're writing this. So the kids' homework this week was 3 things that you have to do during your Disney World trip. This doesn't mean like 3 rides or 3 restaurants. It's like, it could be like, we need to take this certain picture or do this certain thing or whatever it might be. 3 things you definitely want to do. And I got some interesting answers. I'm going to kind of run through some of these a little quick. So my son, 8 years old, he wants to explore Epcot. That was the first, like, we numbered these. What's your number 1? What's your number 2? What's your number 3? I don't know how seriously they thought about this ordering, and I don't know if their answers changed 100 times in their head before they kind of said these things. But my son said explore Epcot was number 1, Tron was number 2, and he was just like, all the rides at Magic Kingdom. He just wants to do rides at Magic Kingdom. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good thing. I was very surprised with exploring Epcot, because I don't know.
You must listen to the podcast.
Yeah, right. I don't know if he was like listening to my wife and I talk about like going into the shops and how that she wants to do that, or was our previous week when we decided what parks to do and when. But he's like, I want to go around, and he really liked finding Olaf in each one of the different countries and kind of crossing them off the list. That the kids, I'm surprised how much they dug it, but they really like running around searching for Olafs or whatever it might be this year or what have you. I think that's a really good value. So if you have kids out there and you think it's silly, kids actually really love the thing. So give that a shot. My oldest daughter, 10, she wanted to do Tron. That was her number 1. We kind of showed them, we announced that we're going to go to the Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. I haven't bought tickets for that. That one's going to hurt. So I'm kind of delaying that one as much as possible. And she wants to do the parade. So we watched some of the like Mammoth Club, Disney Food Blog kind of like videos of the previews of the thing from last year.
Sure.
So they saw like the parades and they saw like the shows. So she was focused on that. And she actually said Topolino's that she wants to try. The only reason why she said that because she remembered me mentioning it like last week. So I want to do that. I'm like, well, the value of Topolino's breakfast is not, I want to spend the money on character meals because we're doing the party. So all the money that we had, would allocate to like a character meal is now going to the party. That's like $1,000 at this point. Why can't we just go 3 of us go down? This is the time we would bring like one kid with us, and that's more affordable at that point. Oh well. My youngest daughter just kind of parrots everything, but she loves cookies and sweets and stuff like that. So she was really focused on like the Disney food block, showing off all the cookies and stuff like that for the Christmas party. So that was her number one. She is completely obsessed with the teacups in Fantasyland. So that's her number one ride that she wants to go on. So I'm like totally surprised by this. She said that one, and the other spinning one where the horses go up and down. I'm like, the carousel. She couldn't think of the carousel or merry-go-round. So she wants to do that. So I labeled them Fantasyland spinners. And she wanted to go on the Jingle Cruise. I am totally surprised that she remembered not only that is a ride, but it was called Jingle Cruise at Christmas time rather than Jungle Cruise. So I'm very proud of her. So hats off to her. So those are her 3 things. The wife wants to do the Grand Floridian gingerbread house and actually have time to go eat gingerbread. So we'll do that before our party night.
Oh, nice.
One thing that we've been missing since 2019 is the story time with Belle, and I think that's still open. That opened earlier this year.
Yes,
I haven't heard anything of it closing. Correct?
No. I mean, at least I can say it was open when we went. I tried to get the family to do it a few times, and nobody had any interest in it. So I don't know why, but it was definitely open. So we were looking at it. So I mean, I think maybe because it always had like not long waits, but like 20 to 30 minutes. And I think they were like, what is it? I don't know. I'm not waiting for that, like that type of thing. Cause it's kind of a slow load. Like it doesn't do a lot of people per hour. So
that's one of the things that I think Disney needs more of in different places. I think it's a really cool experience. And then my wife's last one was Journey of Water, which is, I think, an obvious one. Me, I just want to do all the festival food. I feel like last time we were there, I skipped a lot of the festival food because everybody else wanted to do more things. And no one wanted to be patient, waiting for me while I wait online at the booths, which I think they should all have mobile ordering. But
yeah,
I wanted to see Happily Ever After, and then I have one that's kind of cheat because I always cheat at lists, right? I always figure out a way to shove more into a list that I'm allowed. I wanted to do nighttime Epcot, right? So that includes Journey of Water, but at night, Living with the Land, but at night, and
especially holidays because that'll have the Christmas lights. Yep.
Because I was kind of mad at myself that I didn't do that last year, and I didn't think we would go back again in December. So here we are. And if my wife becomes a full-time teacher next year, we'll never be able to go during Christmas time ever again, unless we go for like a weekend type of thing. Anyway, and then I want to see the fireworks, right? So I think that's kind of implied. But anyway, I don't know if that was a boring list, but what I found was everybody wants to do things at Epcot. And I don't know if I was subtly influencing them a week before about picking 2 days to go to Epcot, but I feel like everybody kind of mentioned something about Epcot other than my youngest one. And I think doing 2 days at Epcot is a good thing. And of course, it's the party, which we're spending all that money on, and just Epcot, Magic Kingdom stuff. Yep. So I think we have our resources in the places that we want. The only other thing that surprised me for this trip is I finally started looking for the Skipper's Canteen ADR now that I have tickets. And I couldn't get an ADR for 5 at all. It said unavailable on the Disney website. By the way, I like the way that Disney finally changed how they find reservations. We made that announcement, I don't know, 2 months ago that they changed things. It's really helpful. But then when I selected party of 5 to 4, like every half hour was open for parties of 1, 2, 3, and 4, but not 5 or above.
Oh, I was going to ask you if you tried 6 because that's definitely one I found. Sometimes 5 wouldn't come up, but then 6 would come up. So that's interesting that nothing larger than 4 came up.
So I think I'm just going to end up booking a party of 2 and a party of 3, and then placehold. I'll be that guy that holds that place to see if I can find something else to kind of blend them together. That being said, also I want to give a shout out to Boardwalk Ticketing. That's how I bought my tickets this year because I have a ticketless package. And I needed to buy tickets from somewhere. Saved about $170 from the Walt Disney World price. I bought Memory Maker through them at the same price as Disney World directly, and ordered the tickets. 3 hours later, had confirmation codes in my email and attached right to my MDE, and it was flawless. So they were recommended by Touring Plans, which I'm a member of. So if you're out there and you're the type of person that buys tickets separately, not as a package through Disney World, they were the best price versus Sam's Club, buying them off of Disney gift cards that you can kind of get like the red card at Target type of thing. Yeah. AAA or any of the other kind of deals that are out there. So take a look at them. You save an extra $20 or so versus all the other ones. So $20 is $20, right?
Yeah, adds up.
So that's the update on my trip planning. Next week, because I'm going to have topics for my trip planning all the way through our trip, and then we'll do 2 months worth of trip reports. I have to have a longer trip report than you. I next week we're going to go over their top 3 things to do at each park, and that's going to be a boring conversation. So maybe I'll do some highlights on that one. One other thing I wanted to mention before we get to our engagement conversation from last week was Disney announced some extra Magic Hour. Are the events or parties? I forget how they label them.
They're after hours events.
Events, right? They're not a party; it's an event. I think that's a special.
It's to differentiate it from the parties, which they close the parks early for, versus an after hour event. Yeah.
So they had a couple of these at the beginning of the year, and kind of coming out of COVID when the parties weren't still going in, and essentially it's the day guests do not get interrupted with their day. People that have tickets to this extra ticketed event, come in at 7. Park usually closes 3 hours later, so it's like, let's say park closes at 9. You can come in at 7, and you stay to midnight, so you get a solid 5 hours at the park, roughly. And I don't think they do anything really special other than it's lower crowds. They might have some extra, like I think Enchantment's coming back for the fireworks, the Magic Kingdom.
So that was the big news today. I would just add, and normally to these after events, they do have some snacks and food. So like popcorn, ice cream, like sodas and things like that. So obviously that's not a huge value, but it is nice. It's kind of like a little perk. It's fun to like go around the park and just be like, I'll have some of that because that's free. Like that's fun.
Yeah.
But yes, the big news was that for the Magic Kingdom version, they are going to be bringing back Enchantment that they will show during the extra hours event. But they're still going to have Happily Ever After at its normal time. So if you're a ticket goer, you get to come in at 7. You can watch Happily Ever After. Then during the show, they didn't say what time it will be. Probably around 11 or so. They will play Enchantment, which was nobody saw this coming.
We had a whole show going over what is the surprise.
What is the surprise? And I will confirm, WW Magic did confirm that this is what they were referencing. So
it's an after party, another fireworks show.
Yeah.
And it was Enchantment, which I mean, I didn't think they would have another fireworks show. And but to bring back Enchantment, Phil, like, why? Like, would you ever put money down on that show coming back so quickly?
No. It's funny because I've talked in the past, probably on the show, but definitely off it, that I think it would be great to do like a retro night. But in my mind, it was always bringing back like Wishes or something from a while ago that people kind of miss and have nostalgia for and would pay a pretty penny to experience again. This is just interesting that it's kind of the show that was just there. People, not that, I mean, I think it get talked about on the internet more than probably in reality, but there was a lot of kind of negativity towards it. You know, everyone wanted Happily Ever, and now they're bringing it back as kind of like an extra perk. I mean, I'm assuming they're doing it because just having an extra show that's different, getting to see 2 different fireworks and night still has appeal. And then they probably already have it kind of ready to go, right? They already have like firework launchers are at the same spot. They already have it, you know, the click execute file. So it like runs the projections or whatever they have to do. Versus like an older show that they might have to retrofit things and stuff like that. So it's probably easy for them to do this versus other options.
Well, that's
still surprising.
I mean, is this like a cheap thing? Like it's easy to do this and it's inexpensive and it's something different? Or is it like somebody trying to prove that the show was still good, or do you think that it's a draw? Like, is this like, we could easily do this for no money and then advertise 2 different fireworks shows a night? Or is it like, well, we think that this is going to bring people to the show, this ticket event, so that's just why we're doing it type of thing? What end of the spectrum are you on?
I think it's more the first, but I do also think there are some people that like, while it wasn't as well received as Happily Ever After, especially once they added the Walt part at the beginning, people did still like it, and it probably didn't get the run it was expected to have, right? And there's probably some people that didn't get to see it, or maybe didn't get to see the version with Walt or whatever. And so this is another opportunity for people to see it again. So I think it's, of those 2 options, it's probably 60-40 the former, but I do think there's some sentiment that it is still a draw. People might have felt that it got taken away a little too soon, and this is their opportunity to see it again.
So I don't know what the percentage of these extra Magic Hour events are locals, APs, or Disney fan diehards, or they're just people that are like, oh, this is a cool event, let's do that upsell and whatever, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the breakdown is. I wouldn't even be able to begin to guess. And if I had to, I would say it's more Disney diehards and locals that are going to these type of things versus your average vacationer at Disney World, right?
Right.
To me, it's amazing. I mean, the show. Len Testa had a comment on the WDW Magic thread that Enchantment through his own surveying scored 4s across the board, and Happily Ever After was like a 4.5 and a 5, right? So it was just a little bit highly rated across 2 different age brackets.
Yep.
And I guess it's a draw. I mean, it wasn't a bad show, but coming from like. Again, I mean, we don't need to rehash this whole Happily Ever After versus Enchantment thing again. But I'm just surprised, like, they're not changing it at all. It's just like, here you go, whatever. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. But back to the original conversation about these Extra Magic Hour events, they range from January, February, March, and April at random times throughout the month. I don't get how they're schedule these. They don't impact normal operating hours because it happens after close. And I think they made a big miss. They missed a very large opportunity was missed because the only time you could go to all 3 events within a span of a week is April 3rd to April 8th. Right. So April 3rd and 4th is Hollywood Studios at Epcot. You got 3 days to wait, and then it's Magic Kingdom. I always thought that Disney should start pairing these up, all 3 of them within a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it might be, whatever the slow days are, if they have those.
Yeah, they're all pretty much on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, or Thursdays, so it's not the weekend days. But yeah, they could pick 3 of those 4 days each week and have one of these.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it might impact something with the deluxe extra hours or something. I don't know, but you still think there'd be a way for them to fit it.
Well, I mean, because my point would be like, I think it wouldn't be with my kids, but I would seriously consider going down and instead of having 4 park days, I would have 3 extra hour event days. And then obviously the only one that's not doing this is Animal Kingdom on this list. So right. I did a little bit of math and I wanted to go over what the cost was for everything here. So I'm trying to find one of my monitors. I'm going to bring this over. So if you go to, I'm assuming you want to go to all 4 parks on your vacation, right? That's kind of what a lot of people want to do, except for me this Christmas. But 3 party tickets I did the actual cost of April 3rd, 4th, and 8th for the events, and a ticket for Animal Kingdom. Somewhere in there. So you got $175, $159, and $175 for the 3 extra hour events. And then $159 for Animal Kingdom with the extra ticket. It's a total of $668, right? So for $668, you can go to all 4 parks, 3 of them being a more exclusive event with lower crowds, right? Which I think might be interesting. If you wanted to go and fill up your time, because now if you're there for the 6 full days, you have 3 events, one park day, and then 2 off days. If you wanted to fill up with a second ticket, so you have 5 tickets, that price is $833. So now, of course, you can compare it to what you would normally do during the week with a 4-day ticket and a 5-day ticket. Comparatively, the 3 events plus a ticket is only $70 more expensive than just 4 park tickets. So the only thing you miss out is on the hours at the parks, but 3 of those days you have significantly reduced crowds. Mm-hmm. So going from 5 hours from 12 hours, do you think there's a value there? Would you pay an extra $70 to do that type of setup in your vacation?
That's interesting. I would definitely consider it. I think it's tough though with that many late nights with kids. If it was like an adults only trip, I'd be more tempted, I think.
I wouldn't do it with kids unless they're teenagers.
Yeah. And I also think it would be even more tempting if this was in the summer to avoid the heat, so that you're out, cooler in the evening. I would definitely consider this. And I if I was picking, if I had some flexibility and what times I could go, I would be attracted to days that had more of these, or at least a couple of these that was an option for me to add in or replace some park tickets with. I did the holiday one that was like an after hours event, and the crowds are really low. And I've done some DVC events. Again, when the crowds are super low and you can just walk on everything, it's a really cool experience.
Plus it's at night, and the parks are awesome at night.
Exactly. So I would definitely be tempted by that for only $70 more. Like, again, if it was a couples, adults only or whatever, that would be attractive.
So the only other alternative would be you could get a 5-day ticket for the same price. Basically, it's like $4 difference
Yeah.
between a three events plus a full day ticket. So you can go for the same price. You can go to 3 events in a day or 5 full days. So that's kind of what you're balancing out as if you're talking about strict dollar wise. So in a trip, let's ignore 3 days. There's a 3-day hole in there that you have to somehow fill up sitting in Orlando with potentially nothing to do. Could you do like a typical vacation with 4 park days, but not do anything until 7:00 every single day? Could you roll with? I mean, even if it's just let's say it's you and your wife go down. It's an adult only trip. Could you? I mean, obviously, maybe you sleep into like.
I was going to say because these go to like 1 a.m., so I'm definitely sleeping in and enjoying pool time and resort time and stuff. Yeah, it's a good point though. If that's like every day of your trip, that's not just like 1 or 2 of the days. It's kind of it's totally a different vibe and a different structure to a different trip.
Yeah, 3 out of your 4 days start at 7. The other day, Animal Kingdom would start at 7 a.m. Right?
Yeah,
7:30 a.m. Whatever it opens for early morning entry. I don't know if I could handle that for like 3 days of just kind of sitting around waiting for my park to open.
Yep.
I'd be tempted to buy like a single day ticket. One of those. Let's go spend $300 and go over to this park a little bit earlier.
You know what I think these are great for though is if you're in the area or doing like an Orlando. Like a Florida trip, not Disney trip. I think these are great. Trip. Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I have a business trip coming up the end of January it's to Miami, so it's not quite Orlando, and I don't think the days work out perfectly. But when this was announced, I was like, can I make it up there and like like figure out a way to fit in like one of these after events because I think they're a great like add on to other things.
Sure.
But I hadn't really ever thought about doing it as like this is kind of what you're basing the bulk of your trip around.
I mean, like Disney's building up to being able to sell 2 tickets per day, right? And so if you can get the reduced crowd, but like to me, I would gear up to make it so it's every single day, but maybe the weekends or something else like that.
Yeah.
And then again, who knows when they'll ever have time to do maintenance? So that's another thing. But anyway, I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting. These events don't interest me with kids because the multiplier on them is just too much and it's too late with young ones. But if it was an adult only trip, I would definitely do like 1 or 2 of these type of things.
Yeah,
have like a day of relaxation. So check those out if you're interested.
One other little thing they did, and I saw announced with it was for the Magic Kingdom ones. Tron will be doing standby, so you don't have to do a virtual queue or anything. So. Considering they did use the virtual queue for the Halloween parties and they're going to be doing it for the Christmas parties, I think that's just another testament to how low they cap these crowds, that they don't feel the need to do a virtual queue, that the lines will still be extremely short.
Also, if you go to these things and they're standby, that means you can run Tron as many times as you want. You just keep it back online, right? So I think that might be the first time you might be able to do that multiple times a day without paying for Genie Plus and a virtual queue. And then a lightning individual
lightning. Yep.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna put that one to bed. We're gonna bring up our DBC engagement from last week, which was list your top 10 characters you'd pick to represent 100 years at Disney. I don't think anybody criticized our list. At least I don't remember. But this was kind of like people had no idea how to answer this. This kind of stumps up people. Like, I'm gonna have to get back to you on this question. There's a lot of answers here, and Phil, you had your idea was to, instead of like listing off top 10 lists, we want to talk trends. So what did you notice?
So a couple trends were, I felt like when we were answering it, or I'm definitely speaking for myself, I really wanted to make sure the whole 100 years was represented. And I kind of like in each of our tiers, I was like, I'm going to have like one of the Fab Five, one from like a classic movie and one from a newer movie, where I feel like a number of the people that answered this was more of, these are the characters that I have nostalgia for. I don't care if it like represents the whole 100 years. Like these are the characters that I think about when I think about my love for Disney. Where I think was it Teal Madden picked like Googly or Groogy from the Black Cauldron. So it's like it's like Gurgi, that's his name for the Black Cauldron. I don't think anybody else would have thought of that, but to him, that's like a very fond memory of he relates to Disney growing up. So I thought that was really interesting. One other trend a lot of people answered, we didn't have it on either of our lists, was Winnie the Pooh, which I could totally understand. I'm wondering how you feel about this. In my mind, Winnie the Pooh was like one of the first like acquisitions of IP that Disney made. Yeah. I know obviously the movies were made by Disney, but like that character was developed by A.A. Milne, and like I don't know. To me, it's more like Marvel or something like that versus like Mickey Mouse. So
I'm with you. Like I
Yeah.
never, even though you saw like the Disney logo growing up, like I never associated Winnie the Pooh with Disney until like really adulthood.
Yeah.
For the most part. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that is good. The other one I mentioned is Mickey Mouse is number one for everybody's list.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, I think that's the one thing that jumped out to me overall. Almost everybody has everybody but 3 people had Cinderella on their list,
hmm
and I think you were the one that had you and Gino have Snow White high on your list as well.
Yeah.
I think I saw that. What other trends did you
I
notice?
saw a lot of people had Maleficent, and I'm wondering if we maybe didn't give as much credence
we
to
need
some
some
of the
villains.
villains as other
Yes.
people did. So I thought that was a good call that a lot of people had. And then we had it, I think, as our honorable mention, but quite a few people did have Jiminy Cricket, and I think they just associate it with When You Wish Upon a Star and everything like that. And it's kind of the same arguments we had for why it was on our honorable mention, but a lot of people had it on their list.
Do you
One
think-
other trend I wanted to say, I was a little surprised more people didn't have Moana. And again, I think we were thinking more the breadth of it. Now, a couple of people did, so it's not like nobody did, but that was almost like in our top tier. Like it was like you have to have Moana, like for
Right.
like kind of the spectrum. Like that's the kind of the number one, like most recent thing. The movie's downloaded all the time so much, but only a couple of people had Moana, so I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm looking through this and I'm trying to see. We have Yulin had Moana at her number 9, her spot there. But I'm looking at everybody else's list. There's no one picked a character other than one person that picked Elsa and 2 people that picked Moana that have a 21st century character.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something.
I think somebody picked Kristoff.
Did they?
And
Okay,
I was-
and I missed
yeah,
that.
But still, like, yeah, there's only a couple characters from like the more recent movies.
Is that a testament to everybody's age, or is there a reason behind that? I don't know. I'm not calling
Yeah.
anybody old. I didn't do that.
I think it's
Point
just
to Phil,
like we
PM
said,
him.
more people focused on nostalgia and like what they associate when they think Disney, not maybe the more modern stuff that obviously is still as equally Disney.
So one person picked Simba in Discord, and I had to ask. You had to clarify. It was young Simba or young adult Simba, I guess.
Yeah.
Who would you pick?
Full grown Simba.
Full-grown Simba.
So for me, first of all, that was one reason I didn't put Simba on my list, was because there's kind of two Simbas.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one, it would be young Simba because of the songs that he's singing. Like I associate it,
Yeah.
and maybe because it's like in PhilharMagic and stuff like that. It's like just can't wait to be king and stuff like that. Like that's my first thought when I think of Simba.
See, like I think of both because Hakuna Matata is one of my favorite Disney songs, and it's the montage of him growing up,
yeah.
right? So I associate the movie with both versions of it, but I get why you would pick young Simba. It has a lot of the classic scenes or big scenes in that movie where his as a young cub. Do we want to talk about anything else? Because I think did anybody put Figment on here?
So I was going to also mention Ali Cohen had a couple good, more unique ones. It looks like her. I don't know if it was just the last one or if her whole list was put together by her 2 girls who are aged 3 and 6, so younger kids. But they put Cruella on the list, which I think is an interesting one and is kind of a good Disney character as well. But in their honorable mentions, they did put Figment because they said that's technically a Disney animated character. Obviously wasn't in a Disney animated classic film full-length feature, but yes, obviously he's a animated character that was created by Disney. The other comment was quite a few people put Mary Poppins on the list, which I'm like, she's not animated, so I don't know.
Person.
That's a real. I mean, I know there's animation elements in those films, but I was like, I don't. I was just surprised that it wasn't just one person; it was like several people put Mary Poppins. It's like, okay,
I'll take it.
But you do you,
It's
everybody.
hilarious. That's it, right? It's up to you. So next week or this week's DBC engagement question is basically you're going to be following the same questions I asked my kids, and I'm not calling you all children on here, but we're all children at heart.
There you
we're all
go.
Disney fans. What are the top 3 things you have to do every Walt Disney World trip, regardless of the length of stay and who you go with? Now, obviously, who you go with might influence this, but what are like 3 things that you have to do? Like, what are your traditions? I'm really curious about I think we had one of these questions maybe like a year or two ago. This sounds familiar now that I'm talking about it. But like everybody has their own traditions or things that they have to do, a picture they have to snap, or place they have to sit, or take a break, or snap. Like everybody has their own rituals. I want to talk about that. So what are the three things that you have to do next week? And I know that we talked about this because I already have.
We definitely did something about like rituals or traditions or something like this. But I do also like how you caveated like, whatever your length of stay is, whoever you go with, what are like 3 things that you have to do every trip? I think that's a good way of putting it.
Because it has to be something like you go, and maybe there's something that you have to do every single time with your kids. But like, what if you go an adult-only trip or whatever? Like, what are those 3 things that maybe it's not a physical thing. Maybe it's a state of being. Like I have to stand on Main Street for 10 minutes and just look at the castle at 9 o'clock. I don't know, whatever it might be. Like things that you could do on your own that don't have to require other people, I guess. They could, but they don't have to. All right, Phil, that's the end of the show. Did I forget anything?
Just a reminder of our social media accounts, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and YouTube. We are all at the DBC Pod, and of course our Discord server. And everywhere, whether it's YouTube or social media, hit us up with comments and reactions and stuff like that. I always enjoy going back and forth with people on social media. It's a good time. So.
Yep, and it happens a lot on Discord. So if you're not on Discord, hop on and join the conversation. All right, everybody, thank you very much for watching and listening. We'll catch you next time. Have a good week, everybody.
Take care, everyone.